I answered the phone on the third ring. My hands were covered in potting soil from the black-eyed Susans I'd been restocking at Meadowbrook Garden Center, where I work for minimum wage plus $1. The screen showed Paige's name. My daughter, 24 years old. She barely calls me anymore unless she needs something. Mom, what the hell is going on? Her voice was shrill, panicked, stripped raw. Behind her I could hear other voices, girls talking over each other, confused and angry. My stomach dropped so fast I had to steady myself against the display table. What do you mean? I asked, though I already knew. God help me. I already knew. There are people at the house, at our house. They say they live here. They say we can't come in. Mom, I brought Jesse and Morgan and Claire. We drove 6 hours. We have all our stuff. What the fuck is happening? I closed my eyes. The June heat pressed down on me like a hand on my chest. A truck beeped somewhere in the distance. My manager, Dennis, walked past with a flat of flowers, glanced at me, kept walking. Paige, what do you mean you're at the house? I'm at the beach house in Myrtle Beach. The one we've had since you were a kid. Where we spend every summer. Where I told you we were spending the whole summer. And there are strangers here saying they own it. My throat went dry. I told you I was selling the house. What? I told you in March I was selling it. I told you again in April. I told you in May at lunch. You said okay. Silence. Not the thinking kind. The shocked kind. The kind that comes right before an explosion. You didn't say they were moving in right away. You didn't say I couldn't use it this summer. You didn't say. I said I was selling the house. What did you think that meant? I thought you were bluffing. I thought you'd change your mind. Mom, there are 3 people with me right now, staring at me like I'm insane. We're standing in the driveway with our suitcases. There's a family inside with kids, and they're looking at us through the window like we're criminals. What are we supposed to do? I thought about all the times I'd fixed things for her. Every problem, every mistake, every consequence I'd absorbed so she wouldn't have to feel it. The car accident I paid for. The rent I covered when she got fired. The credit card debt I helped clear. Every single time I'd told myself I was being a good mother. I don't know, Paige. Figure it out. Are you serious right now? Yes. So you just let us drive all the way down here? You let me tell my friends they could stay all summer? You let me look like a complete idiot? I didn't let you do anything. You did that yourself. You heard what you wanted to hear. You made promises you had no right to make. That's not on me. Oh my God. Her voice cracked. Oh my God, you're really going to do this? You're really going to... I have to get back to work. I'm sorry you drove down there. I'm sorry you're embarrassed. But I told you the truth 3 times, and you chose not to listen. Mom, I love you, but I can't do this right now. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I had to shove them in my pockets. Through the garden center's glass doors, I could see Dennis at the register, carefully not looking at me, giving me space. I stood there in the North Carolina heat, 51 years old, wearing dirt-stained jeans and a Meadowbrook polo shirt that was too big for me. And I realized I'd just done something I'd never done before in 24 years of being Paige's mother. I'd said no, and I'd meant it. My phone started buzzing again. Paige. Then a number I didn't recognize with an 843 area code. South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, then Paige again. I turned the sound off and went back inside. The beach house that had been in my family for 47 years was gone. I'd sold it 6 weeks ago to pay for my mother's medical bills after her stroke. The couple who bought it, David and Melissa Hargrove, were 32 and 30, expecting their first baby, excited about raising their child by the ocean. They'd moved in 2 weeks ago. I knew this because I'd signed all the papers, taken their money, cried in my car in the lawyer's parking lot for 20 minutes. I'd told Paige. I'd told her multiple times. She'd nodded, said okay. then posted old photos of the beach house on Instagram with captions about summer plans. I should have known then. But I wanted to believe she'd heard me. I wanted to believe she'd finally grown up enough to accept disappointment. I was wrong. Now she was standing in that driveway with 3 friends who'd taken time off work, who'd driven 6 hours, who'd been promised an entire summer at the beach by a girl who either didn't listen or didn't care or couldn't accept that the world doesn't always bend to what we want. And I wasn't fixing it. For the first time in her entire life, I wasn't fixing it. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket, silent vibrations that felt like accusations. I ignored them and went back to the Black-Eyed Susans. Water, prune, restock. The same rhythms I'd known for 6 years at this job I took after my real career collapsed under the weight of medical debt. By the time my shift ended at 6, I had 42 missed calls and 27 text messages, most from Paige, some from numbers I didn't recognize. One from someone named Diane Foster, who identified herself as Morgan's mother and wanted to discuss the confusion about the beach house. I deleted that one without reading the whole thing. The messages from Paige devolved from angry to desperate to vicious. The last one, sent at 5:47 p.m., said, "I will never forgive you for this. Never. You've ruined everything, and you don't even care. I hope you're happy." I wasn't happy. I was exhausted and scared and wondering if I'd just destroyed my relationship with my only child. But I also wasn't sorry. Because here's what no one was asking. How many times had I told her? How many conversations had she ignored because she didn't like the answer? How many promises had she made without checking with me first? And why was it my job to save her from consequences she'd created herself? I drove home to my small apartment in Durham, made a cup of tea I didn't drink, and sat on my couch in the dark. My phone lit up with notifications. Paige had posted something on Instagram. I didn't have the app, but enough people were messaging me screenshots that I got the full picture. A sunset photo of the ocean, one of the old ones from our family archives, with a caption that made my stomach turn. When family means less than you thought it did. When promises turn out to be lies. Grateful for the friends who show up when blood doesn't. Within an hour, it had hundreds of comments. People calling me selfish, cruel, a narcissist, a terrible mother. People who didn't know me, didn't know the situation, didn't know that I'd sold that house so my mother could afford the assisted living facility where she sits forgetting my name while strangers feed her and change her clothes. I closed my phone, drank the cold tea, thought about calling Paige back, apologizing, offering to pay for a hotel for her and her friends, smoothing everything over the way I always did. Instead, I went to bed, and I slept. Not well, not peacefully, but I slept. Because for the first time in 24 years, I'd done something that felt more important than being liked. I'd done something that felt more important than being comfortable. I'd told the truth and let her deal with it. And tomorrow, when she was still angry, when the internet was still calling me names, when her friends' parents were still leaving me voicemails about what a disappointment I was going to wake up and do it again. I was going to keep saying no, even if it cost me everything. I learned to tie my shoes in the kitchen of the Myrtle Beach house. I was 4 years old sitting on linoleum that was already 20 years old then, my father's hands guiding mine through the loops. Over, under, around, and through. He'd say, patient as dawn. The house smelled like salt and coffee, always, no matter the season. My mother would stand at the counter, cutting fruit, humming something I can never quite remember but can always almost hear. That was 47 years ago. The linoleum is long gone now, replaced twice, maybe 3 times. My father died when I was 31. My mother had a stroke 14 months ago and can't remember what year it is, though sometimes, on good days, she remembers the house. She'll look at me from her chair at Golden Shores Assisted Living and say, "When are we going to the beach, Lauren?" And I'll smile and say, "Soon, Mama, soon." I've been lying to her for over a year, but it's the kind of lie that feels like mercy. The house stopped being mine on June 12th, 2025, at 2:47 in the afternoon. I know the exact time because I watched the second hand on the lawyer's office clock tick forward while I signed my name 23 times. Each signature felt like a small death. Lauren E. Whitmore. Lauren E. Whitmore. My hand cramped by the 16th page. "You're doing the right thing," Michael Chen said. He was the real estate agent, mid-40s, kind eyes, the type of man who probably coached Little League and remembered everyone's birthday. "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you are." I nodded because that's what you do when someone tries to comfort you, even when their words slide off the truth, like rain off glass. I wasn't doing the right thing. I was doing the only thing. There's a difference, though I'm not sure anyone wants to hear it. The couple who bought the house, David and Melissa Hargrove, 32 and 30 respectively, sat across from me during the closing. She was 6 months pregnant, glowing in that way people always say, pregnant women glow. Though I never felt anything but tired and nauseous when I carried Paige. They held hands under the table. He kept looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. "We're going to take such good care of it," Melissa said, and I could hear she meant it. "Our baby's going to grow up with the ocean right there, just like you did." "That's wonderful," I said. And I meant that too, because it was. Because they deserved that house more than I could afford to keep it. Because my mother's hospital bills weren't going to pay themselves, and the roof wasn't going to fix itself. And I'd been choosing between groceries and medication for 3 months. I cried in my car afterward. Ugly crying. The kind where your face gets hot and your throat closes up and you can't catch your breath. I sat in the parking lot of Chen & Associates Realty for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to remember how to breathe like a normal person. A woman walked past with a golden retriever. She glanced at me, looked away quickly, kept walking. That's what people do when they see someone breaking. They look away. I texted Paige when I got home. "It's done. House sold. I'm sorry." She didn't respond for 3 days. I work at Meadowbrook Garden Center on the east side of Durham, North Carolina. It's not glamorous. Minimum wage plus $1. Employee discount on plants I don't have room for in my apartment. The smell of mulch permanently embedded in my work jeans. But I like it. I like the customers who come in on Saturday mornings with pictures of their yards on their phones, asking what will grow in partial shade, what's good for pollinators, what can survive a Durham summer. I like the rhythm of watering, pruning, restocking. I like that plants don't expect anything from you except consistency. My manager, Dennis, is 67 and has been growing things since before I was born. He has a lazy eye and a dry sense of humor, and once told me, "The thing about gardens is they'll teach you everything you need to know about life if you shut up long enough to listen." I think about that a lot. It was a Friday, late June. Humidity sitting on the city like a wet blanket. I was restocking the perennial section, Black-Eyed Susan's coneflowers bee balm, when my phone started buzzing in my back pocket. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. I ignored it. We're not supposed to use our phones on the floor unless it's an emergency, and I've never been the type to assume everything is an emergency. But then it buzzed again, and again. "You better get that," Dennis said, walking past with a flat of impatience. "Nobody calls that much with good news." I pulled off my gloves, checked the screen. 7 missed calls, 4 from Paige, 3 from a number I didn't recognize with a 843 area code. South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. My stomach dropped so fast I had to steady myself against the display table. "I need to take this," I said. Dennis nodded. "Take your time." I walked out the side door into the employee area. Just a strip of concrete behind the building where we take breaks and the delivery trucks unload. The heat hit me like a slap. I called Paige back. She answered on the first ring. Mom, what the hell is going on? Her voice was high, frantic, stripped of the casual coolness she usually wore like armor. Behind her I could hear other voices, girls' voices, talking over each other, anxious and confused. Paige, slow down. What? There are people at the house, at our house. They say they live here. They say we can't come in. Mom, what is happening? I closed my eyes. The sun was brutal on my face, on my arms. Somewhere a truck beeped, backing up. Somewhere a bird called out, sharp and insistent. What do you mean you're at the house? I said, though I already knew. Of course I knew. I'm at the beach house. Me and Jessie and Morgan and Claire. We drove down for the summer. I told you we were coming. No, I said quietly. You didn't. Yes, I did. I told you. Paige. My voice came out harder than I intended. I told you in March I was selling the house. I told you again in April. I told you in May at lunch. You said, okay. Silence. Not the thinking kind. The stunned kind. You didn't say they were moving in right away, she said finally. And I could hear the beginning of tears in her voice. The little girl crack that used to unmake me every time. You didn't say I couldn't use it this summer. I said I was selling it. What did you think that meant? I thought... Her voice broke. I thought you were just saying that. I didn't think you'd actually... Actually what? Actually sell the house I told you I was selling? Actually do what I said I was going to do? Mom, I have 3 people with me. We drove 6 hours. We have all our stuff. What are we supposed to do now? I thought about all the times I'd fixed things for her. The time she got suspended in 10th grade for skipping class, and I'd met with the principal, negotiated it down to detention. The time she'd totaled my car at 19, and I dealt with the insurance, paid the deductible I couldn't afford, never made her pay me back. The time she'd been fired from 2 jobs in 6 months, and I'd helped her make rent until she found something else. Every time I'd told myself I was being a good mother. Every time I'd absorbed the impact so she wouldn't have to feel it. I don't know, Paige, I said. Figure it out. Are you serious right now? Yes. So you just let us drive all the way down here? You let me tell my friends they could stay all summer? You let me look like a complete idiot in front of everyone? I didn't let you do anything, I said, and my voice was steady now, calm in a way that scared me a little. You did that yourself. You heard what you wanted to hear. You made promises you had no right to make. That's not on me. Oh my God! Oh my God! You're really going to... I have to get back to work, I said. I'm sorry you drove down there. I'm sorry you're embarrassed. But I told you the truth 3 times, and you didn't want to listen. That's not something I can fix for you. Mom, I love you, but I can't do this right now. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I stared at the phone for a long moment, half expecting it to ring again, half hoping it would. It didn't. When I walked back inside, Dennis looked up from the register. Everything okay? No, I said, but it will be. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Plants'll still be here when you're ready. I went back to the Black-Eyed Susans. My hands steadied as I worked. Water, prune, restock. The same rhythms I'd known for 6 years. The same small certainties. That night, alone in my apartment, I sat on the couch with a cup of tea I didn't drink and stared at my phone. Paige hadn't called back. Instead, she'd sent a series of texts that devolved from angry to devastating. I can't believe you did this. Do you even care how humiliated I am? Everyone is asking me what's wrong, and I don't know what to tell them. You've never done anything like this before. I don't even know who you are anymore. That last one sat in my chest like a stone. I don't even know who you are anymore. The strange thing was, I didn't know either. The Lauren who would have driven to Myrtle Beach immediately, who would have paid for a hotel for Paige and her friends. who would have apologized for something that wasn't her fault. That Lauren felt like someone I'd left behind in the lawyer's office when I signed those papers. This Lauren, the one sitting on a couch in a quiet apartment, drinking cold tea and not fixing things. She was new, unfamiliar, a little frightening, but maybe not wrong. My phone buzzed again. Not Paige this time. A number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Lauren. This is Diane Foster, Morgan's mom. I just wanted to reach out because Morgan called very upset. I understand there was some confusion about the beach house. I'm sure it's just a miscommunication, but the girls are pretty shaken up. If you could give me a call when you have a chance, I'd appreciate it. Thanks." I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I deleted it. Saturday morning. I woke up to 14 notifications. Paige had posted something on Instagram. I didn't have the app, but apparently enough mutual acquaintances had screenshotted it and sent it to me that I got the full picture. A photo of the ocean at sunset, one of the old ones from our archives, with a caption, "When family means less than you thought it did. When promises turn out to be lies. Grateful for the friends who show up when blood doesn't." I sat on the edge of my bed in my underwear and a faded Duke t-shirt, staring at the phone, feeling something cold and heavy settle in my stomach. Not guilt, exactly. Something more complicated. Something that felt like grief and relief twisted together. She'd tagged the photo with betrayal hurts and family first, which felt ironic given the content. But I supposed irony wasn't her strong suit at the moment. My phone rang. My sister, Carol. She lives in Asheville, teaches 5th grade, has 2 teenage boys who worship her. She's always been the put-together one, the one who makes dinner from scratch and remembers everyone's birthdays and never seems to struggle the way I do. "I saw Paige's post," she said without preamble. "What happened?" I told her. All of it. The house, the bills, the 3 conversations Paige had ignored, the phone call, yesterday. Carol listened without interrupting, which is one of her best qualities. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "How do you feel?" she asked finally. "Like the worst mother in the world. But also like I did the right thing." "Then you probably did," Carol said. "Lauren, you've been cleaning up after her for 24 years. Maybe it's time she learned to clean up after herself. Everyone thinks I'm horrible. Everyone doesn't know the whole story. And even if they did, you're not responsible for their opinions." I wanted to believe her. But opinions have weight, even when they shouldn't. "She's really hurt," I said. "She's really embarrassed," Carol corrected. "There's a difference. Hurt is what you feel when someone betrays you. Embarrassed is what you feel when you betray yourself, and other people see it." I thought about that for a long time after we hung up. Sunday, I visited my mother. Golden Shores is a 40-minute drive from my apartment, out past the suburbs where Durham starts to turn rural, where the strip malls give way to horse farms and produce stands. It's a nice facility. Expensive, but nice. Private rooms, activities, staff who actually seem to care. It's costing me nearly $4,000 a month, which is why the beach house had to go. Which is why I'm working at a garden center at 51 instead of the marketing job I had before the medical bills started piling up. Mom was in her room, sitting in the chair by the window. She was wearing the blue cardigan I'd brought her last month, the one that matches her eyes. Her hair was brushed, which meant one of the aides had been in recently. She looked small in that chair, smaller than I remembered. "Hi, Mama," I said, sitting on the edge of her bed. She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her struggling, trying to pull my name up from whatever fog it had sunk into. "Lauren," she said finally, and smiled. "A good day, then. How are you feeling?" Fine. When are we going to the beach?" My throat tightened. "Soon, Mama. Paige loves the beach," she said. "Is Paige coming?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "You two should make up," Mom said, suddenly lucid in that way she sometimes was, like someone had briefly turned up the dial on her mind. Life's too short to stay angry. I'm not angry at her. Is she angry at you? Yes. Mom nodded slowly. Then you wait. You give her time. She'll come around. Children always do. I wanted to believe her. But Mom still thought I was 25 and Paige was a baby. She didn't know that children grow into adults who can hold grudges for years, who can post your failures on the internet for strangers to judge. I miss the house, she said softly, looking out the window at the parking lot, the trees beyond. I miss the sound of the ocean. Me too, I whispered. We sat together in silence for a while. Sometimes that's all you can do. Sit with someone in their missing, in their forgetting. Bear witness to the things they've lost. By Monday, the story had spread. I don't know how these things happen, how private family disasters become public entertainment. But they do. I got a Facebook message from a woman I barely knew, someone I'd been in a book club with 7 years ago. Hi, Lauren. I heard about what happened with Paige and the beach house. Just wanted to say I think you did the right thing. Kids these days need to learn accountability. Hang in there. I didn't respond. I didn't want to be someone's validation, someone's proof that they were parenting correctly. At work, Dennis didn't ask questions, but he gave me the easier tasks. Watering, mostly. Things that didn't require much thinking. I was grateful for that. For the rhythmic simplicity of it. For the way the plants just needed water and light, and didn't judge you for your parenting choices. Tuesday, Paige's friend Morgan's mother called. I let it go to voicemail. She left a long message about how her daughter was very upset, and how this situation could have been handled better, and how she hoped I would consider the impact this is having on these young women. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Wednesday, Paige called. I answered. I need money, she said. No hello. No softening. For what? For a hotel. We can't afford to drive back and then come back down later. And we already took the time off work, so we're going to stay at a motel for a few days. Paige, I'm not asking for much. Just like $300 to cover a few nights. I looked at my bank account on my laptop screen. $742 until my next paycheck on Friday. Rent was due next week. I'd been eating peanut butter sandwiches for 3 days to stretch the grocery budget. I can't, I said. Silence. Then, are you fucking kidding me? I don't have it. You just sold a house for like $500,000. $320,000, I corrected. And it went to paying off the mortgage and the equity line I took out for your grandmother's medical bills and the back taxes and... So you're just going to let me suffer? Let me look like an asshole in front of my friends? You're not suffering. You're experiencing consequences. Oh my God, you sound like a therapist. A bad one. Paige, I told you. I don't want to hear it, she snapped. I don't want to hear about how you told me. You did this on purpose. You wanted to humiliate me. That's not true. Then give me the money. No. The word hung there between us, solid and immovable. I'd said no to her before. No, you can't get a tattoo at 16. No, you can't drop out of college after 1 semester. No, I won't co-sign on that car loan. But this felt different. This felt like a door closing. Fine, she said. And her voice was cold now, empty. Don't call me again. I mean it, Mom. I'm done. She hung up. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, staring at nothing. Outside, I could hear kids playing in the complex pool, their voices bright with summer. Inside, the apartment was very quiet. I didn't cry. I'd already done all my crying in that parking lot 3 weeks ago. Now there was just the waiting, the wondering if I'd made the right choice, the hoping that love could survive honesty. Thursday evening, my phone rang. Carol again. Paige called me, she said. Of course she did. She asked if I would give her money for a hotel. What did you say? I said no. I told her if she was old enough to promise her friends a summer at the beach, without asking you, she was old enough to figure out how to fix it. She must have loved that. She called me a bitch and hung up. Despite everything, I laughed. It came out sharp and surprised, like something breaking loose. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, I said. Nobody ever does, Carol said. But I'll tell you what I tell my boys. You can't learn to walk if someone's always carrying you. She's so angry. She's allowed to be angry. And you're allowed to let her be angry. Those two things can both be true. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion, though I couldn't remember what occasion I'd been saving it for. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink and gold. Somewhere out there, Paige was in a cheap motel with her friends, probably talking about what a terrible mother I was. Somewhere out there, the beach house I'd grown up in was full of someone else's furniture, someone else's dreams, and I was here, alone, uncertain, but somehow, unexpectedly, at peace. The hard part about being a mother is knowing when to hold on and when to let go. For 24 years, I'd held on so tight, I'd forgotten I had hands. Maybe it was time to open them, to see what stayed and what needed to fly. I thought about my mother's question. When are we going to the beach? The truth was, I didn't know. Maybe never. Maybe the beach wasn't a place anymore, but a memory, something that existed in the past tense. Maybe that was okay. Maybe we spend our whole lives trying to get back to places that only exist in our minds. And maybe the real courage is in accepting that you can't go back. You can only go forward. I finished my wine. The sky darkened. Tomorrow I'd go to work. I'd water plants and help customers and do the small, necessary things that make up a life. And the day after that, I'd do it again. And eventually, I had to believe this, eventually Paige would call. Not because she needed something, but because she'd learned what I'd been trying to teach her all along. That love doesn't mean never saying no. Sometimes it means finally having the courage to say it, and meaning it. The first real crack came on a Tuesday morning, 9 days after the phone call. I was restocking the herb section, basil, oregano, thyme, when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. No message, just a screenshot. It took me a moment to understand what I was looking at. A Reddit post titled, "My Friend's Mom literally ruined our entire summer and won't even apologize." My hands went cold. I clicked on the image, zooming in. The post was long, detailed, written by someone named Beachbummed24. Had to be one of Paige's friends. It laid out the whole story. The promised beach house, the 6-hour drive, the shocking discovery that the house had been sold, the cruel mother who knew they were coming and didn't say anything. The comments below were a mix of outrage and disbelief. That's literally psychotic. Parents who play mind games like this are toxic AF. I would never speak to my mom again. I put my phone in my back pocket and went back to the basil. My hands were shaking so badly I had to stop, close my eyes, breathe. "You okay?" Dennis asked, appearing beside me with his usual quiet timing. "Someone posted about me on the internet," I said, and hearing the words out loud made them feel more real, more humiliating. "People post all kinds of things on the internet," Dennis said. "Most of it's fertilizer, if you catch my meaning." I almost smiled. Almost. "It's my daughter's friend. She's making me sound like a monster." Dennis was quiet for a moment, looking at the basil plants like they held some kind of answer. "My son didn't talk to me for 2 years," he said finally. "He thought I was too hard on him, thought I didn't understand him. Now he calls me every Sunday, thanks me for not letting him quit when things got difficult." He paused. "Sometimes being a good parent means being the villain in someone else's story for a while. Does it get easier? No," he said honestly, "but it gets clearer." I thought about that all day. Clarity. Not comfort, not resolution, but clarity. Maybe that was all I could hope for. That night, I made the mistake of Googling myself. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe the post would be buried somewhere I'd never have to see it. Instead, I found 3 different versions of the story, shared across different platforms: Facebook, Twitter, TikTok apparently, though I didn't have an account there and couldn't see the video directly. Each version was slightly different, details warped like a game of telephone, but the core message was the same: bad mother, selfish, cruel. One post had over 2,000 shares. I sat on my couch with my laptop, feeling something dark and heavy settle over me. This was what my life had become: a cautionary tale, a villain origin story for strangers to dissect. My phone rang. "Carol, don't read the comments," she said immediately. "Too late. Lauren, one person said I should have my parental rights revoked. Another person said I'm the reason that millennials have trust issues. Those people don't know you. They don't know the situation. They think they do. And maybe they're right. Maybe I am a terrible mother. Stop." Carol's voice was firm now, the teacher voice she used when her students were spiraling. "You did nothing wrong. You told her. Multiple times. She chose not to listen. That's on her. Then why does it feel like it's on me?" Carol was quiet for a moment. "Because you love her. And love makes you vulnerable to other people's opinions, even when those opinions are based on lies." After we hung up, I opened my laptop again. I read through the posts one more time, letting each comment hit me like a small stone. Some part of me felt like I deserved it, like this was penance for something I couldn't name. Then I closed the laptop, deleted my browser history, made myself a cup of chamomile tea, and sat in the dark, listening to the hum of my refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic on the highway. Wednesday, I got a call from an unknown number during my lunch break. I answered without thinking. "Is this Lauren Whitmore?" A woman's voice, polite but cold. "Yes. This is Janet Morris. I'm Claire's mother. Claire is one of the girls who was with your daughter at the beach house." My stomach tightened. "I know who Claire is. I wanted to call and speak with you directly, woman to woman, because I think there's been a real breakdown in communication here. Mrs. Morris, please let me finish. Claire has been beside herself since this incident. She used her savings for this trip. She took time off from her job. She's a responsible young woman who was led to believe she'd have a place to stay. And now she's struggling to make ends meet because of decisions that, frankly, could have been communicated more clearly." I felt heat rising in my chest, up my neck. "I communicated very clearly to my daughter that I was selling the house 3 separate times. But did you communicate that to the other girls? Did you reach out to confirm these plans? I'm not responsible for my daughter's promises to her friends. With all due respect, Mrs. Whitmore, as a parent, I think we do have some responsibility to ensure our children aren't making commitments they can't keep. My daughter is 24 years old. Exactly. She's still young, still learning. And I think, Mrs. Morris," my voice was steady now, cold, "I sold my house to pay for my mother's medical care. I told my daughter months in advance. What she chose to do with that information, or not do, is not my problem. And it's certainly not yours." Silence. Then, "I think this conversation is over. I think you're right." She hung up. I sat in my car in the Meadowbrook parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard. My lunch break was only 30 minutes, and I'd just spent 15 of them being lectured by a stranger about my failures as a parent. I didn't go back inside right away. I sat there watching people come and go from the garden center, carrying flats of petunias and bags of soil, living their uncomplicated lives. I wondered what it would be like to be them, to have problems that could be solved with the right fertilizer, the right amount of sunlight. That evening, I got a text from Paige, the first direct communication in over a week. "Thanks a lot. Now Claire's mom thinks you're insane and Morgan's parents want to have a conversation with you about what happened. You've literally made this so much worse. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I'm not sorry for selling the house or for not giving you money you weren't owed." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "You've changed. You used to care about me." Something cracked open in my chest. "I've always cared about you. That's why I'm doing this. That doesn't even make sense. It will someday. Don't hold your breath." I set the phone down. Made dinner. Scrambled eggs and toast. The kind of meal you make when you can't muster the energy for anything more complicated. I ate standing at the counter, looking out the window at the parking lot, at the families coming home from work, from school, from wherever people go during the day. I thought about the version of myself I'd been a year ago. The one who would have driven to Myrtle Beach immediately, checkbook in hand, apologies ready. The one who would have paid for the hotel, smoothed everything over, made sure no one was uncomfortable or inconvenienced. That Lauren felt like a stranger now, someone I'd known intimately but had slowly, inevitably, grown apart from. Sunday, I visited my mother again. The drive felt longer this time, the landscape familiar but somehow foreign, like I was seeing it through new eyes. Mom was having a bad day. She didn't recognize me at first, called me Margaret, her sister who died in 1998. I sat with her anyway, held her hand, listened to her talk about people and places that existed only in her fractured memory. "The house needs painting," she said at one point, looking at me with sudden urgency. "Tom was supposed to paint it last summer, but he never did. You tell him it needs painting." Tom had been dead for 20 years. "I'll tell him," I said softly. Good. She relaxed back into her chair, satisfied. Then, "Where's the baby?" "What baby, Mama?" "Your baby, Paige. Where's my grandbaby?" "She's grown up now. She's 24. Mom looked confused, then distressed. "That can't be right. She was just here. She was just a baby." "Time moves fast," I said, and felt the truth of it in my bones. We sat together for a while, my mother drifting in and out of coherence, me anchoring her when I could. At one point, she looked at me with sudden, piercing clarity. "You look tired, Lauren." "I am tired." "Is something wrong?" "Paige and I are fighting." "What about?" "It's complicated." Mom nodded slowly. "It's always complicated with children. You love them so much it hurts. And sometimes that love makes you do things that hurt them. But you do it anyway because you know it's right." She paused. "Or at least you hope it's right. You never really know." "When did you get so wise?" She smiled, distant, already slipping back into the fog. "I've always been wise. You just haven't always been listening." That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine and my phone. I opened Instagram for the first time in days. Paige had posted a new photo, her and her 3 friends at what looked like a boardwalk, cotton candy and forced smiles. The caption, "Making the best of a bad situation. Real friends show up when family doesn't." The comments were predictably supportive. "You deserve better. Family isn't always blood. Your mom sounds toxic, TBH." I closed the app, opened my photos instead, scrolled back through years of pictures. Paige as a baby, chubby and laughing. Paige at 5, missing her front teeth. Paige at 10, 12, 16. Paige at 20, graduation cap tilted, arm around me, both of us smiling. When had it gone wrong? Or had it always been wrong, in small ways I'd been too close to see? My phone buzzed. A text from Dennis. "Saw a video about the beach house thing. Want you to know I'm not watching that garbage, and neither should you. See you tomorrow." I smiled despite everything. Typed back, "Thank you." Another text, this time from Carol. Paige called me again. Asked if I thought you were being abusive. I told her no. I thought you were being a mother. She didn't like that answer. I'm sure she didn't. Hang in there. This isn't forever. I wanted to believe her. But forever is a relative concept. Some hurts last longer than others. Some distances can't be crossed. Monday morning, I woke up to an email from Morgan's father. The subject line, "Disappointed in your behavior." I didn't open it. I archived it, made coffee, got ready for work. I'd learned something in the past 2 weeks. Not every message deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves a defense. At work, a woman came in looking for drought-resistant plants for her backyard. We walked through the options. Lavender, salvia, Russian sage. She was in her 60s, kind-faced, patient, while I explained the care instructions. "You really know your stuff," she said, as I helped her load the plants into her cart. "I've been learning," I said. "It shows." She paused, then added, "My daughter and I didn't speak for almost a year once. Worst year of my life, but we got through it. And we're closer now than we ever were before." I looked at her, surprised. "How did you know?" "I didn't. But you have that look. The one mothers get when their children are angry with them." She smiled sadly. "It's a club nobody wants to join, but we all end up there eventually. Does it get better? It gets different. And different is sometimes better, even when it doesn't feel like it." She left with her plants and a wave, and I stood there in the aisle surrounded by green growing things, feeling something shift inside me. Not resolution, not peace, but maybe the beginning of acceptance. That night, I wrote Paige a letter. Not a text, not an email, but an actual letter. Longhand. On paper I'd bought specifically for this purpose. I didn't know if she'd read it. I didn't know if it would change anything. But I needed to say it anyway. "Dear Paige, I know you're angry. I know you feel betrayed. I know you think I did this to hurt you, to embarrass you, to prove some kind of point. You're wrong. I sold the house because I had to. Because your grandmother deserves care that costs more than I can afford. Because the roof was failing, and the plumbing was shot, and I was drowning in debt I couldn't see a way out of. I told you this. Multiple times. You heard me and chose not to listen. That's on you, not me. But here's what I should have said earlier. What I should have made clear. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for selling the house. I'm not sorry for refusing to pay for a hotel I can't afford. I'm not sorry for letting you experience the consequences of your own decisions. For 24 years, I've been your safety net. Every time you fell, I caught you. Every time you made a mistake, I fixed it. Every time you needed something, I gave it, even when I had nothing left to give. I thought I was being a good mother. I thought I was showing you love, but I wasn't. I was teaching you that actions don't have consequences, that other people will always clean up your messes, that you don't have to listen when someone tells you the truth, because someone will always be there to soften the blow. That stops now. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. I love you enough to let you fail. I love you enough to watch you struggle. I love you enough to say no, even when it hurts both of us. You're angry now. Maybe you'll be angry for a long time. Maybe you'll never forgive me. I can live with that. What I can't live with is raising a daughter who never learned to stand on her own 2 feet, because I was always standing on them for her. So no, I won't apologize, and I won't give you money you haven't earned for a problem you created. But I will always, always love you, even when you hate me, even when you think I'm the villain in your story. Especially then. Love. Mom. I read it over 3 times, folded it, put it in an envelope, addressed it to the apartment in Raleigh. I still paid half the rent on, even though Paige hadn't thanked me in 6 months. Then I walked to the mailbox on the corner and dropped it in before I could change my mind. The next few days passed in a strange, suspended quiet. Paige didn't call, didn't text. The internet storm seemed to be dying down, or at least moving on to the next scandal, the next viral tragedy. I worked, I ate, I slept. I visited my mother, who asked again about the beach, about painting the house. About the baby, who was no longer a baby. On Thursday, Carol called. I saw your letter. How? Paige posted it. On Instagram. With a caption about how, even in writing, she can't apologize. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. People are. Divided. Some think you're brave. Some think you're cold. Most just want entertainment. What do you think? I think you're my sister. And I love you. And you're doing the hardest thing a mother can do. Which is letting go when every instinct tells you to hold on. We talked for a while longer about nothing and everything. When we hung up, I felt steadier somehow. Like I'd been standing on shifting ground and someone had finally told me it was okay to find solid footing, even if it wasn't where I'd expected to end up. Friday evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then something made me pick up. Mrs. Whitmore? This is Melissa Hargrove. My husband and I bought your beach house. My breath caught. Mrs. Hargrove, is everything okay? Is something wrong with the house? No, nothing like that. I wanted to call because I saw some things online. About your daughter. About what happened. My face burned. I'm so sorry if any of that has affected you. It's a private family matter that got very public very quickly. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I wanted you to know that we understand. My husband and I, we think what you did was incredibly brave. Brave? I have a younger sister, Melissa said. She's 26, still living at home, still expecting my parents to pay for everything, still throwing tantrums when she doesn't get her way. My mom enables it, every time, and I watch it, and I know it's not helping her. But my mom can't seem to stop. It's hard to stop. Exactly. So when I saw what you did, standing your ground, letting your daughter face reality, I thought, God, I hope I can be that strong when my kid is grown. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. I also wanted to tell you something else. We found some things in the house, boxes in the attic that got left behind. Pictures mostly. Old photo albums, some letters. They look personal. I think they might be from when you were a kid. Oh, my voice came out small. I thought I'd gotten everything. Do you want them? I can mail them, or if you're ever in the area. I'll come get them, I said quickly, if that's okay. Of course. We're here most weekends. Just let me know when. After we hung up, I sat very still, feeling something unfamiliar bloom in my chest. Not happiness, exactly, but maybe hope. Maybe the sense that not everyone thought I was a monster. That somewhere in the chaos, someone understood. Saturday, I drove to Myrtle Beach. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not Carol, not Dennis, not Paige. I left at dawn, watched the sun rise over tobacco fields and pine forests as I drove east. The house looked different. Fresh paint, a soft cream instead of the weathered blue I'd known. New shutters, a swing on the front porch I didn't recognize. But it was still the house, still the same bones, the same view of the ocean, the same oak tree in the front yard where my father had hung a tire swing in 1982. Melissa answered the door with a smile, her belly even rounder than I remembered. Mrs. Whitmore, come in, please. I stepped inside. The smell was different, fresh paint and new carpet, but the layout was the same, the bones I'd grown up with. The boxes are in the living room, Melissa said. I didn't look through them. They seemed private. There were 3 boxes, old banker's boxes that had probably been in that attic since before I was born. I knelt beside them, lifted the lid off the first one. Photographs, hundreds of them. My parents, young and laughing. Me as a baby. My sister. Summers at the beach. Christmases with grandparents I barely remembered. Birthday parties and graduations. And ordinary Tuesdays that someone had thought were worth preserving. Would you like some coffee? Melissa asked softly. You can sit for a while if you want. Thank you, I whispered. She left me alone. I sat on the floor of a house that was no longer mine, surrounded by memories I'd forgotten I had, and I cried. Not the panicked, desperate crying from the lawyer's office. Quieter. Sadder. The kind of crying that comes when you realize something is really, truly over. I found a photo near the bottom of the second box. Me and Paige, maybe 10 years ago, standing on the beach at sunset. We're both tan, both smiling, my arm around her shoulders. She's looking at the camera. I'm looking at her. I studied that photo for a long time. Tried to remember what we'd been talking about that day. What had made us smile like that? But the moment was gone. Preserved in image, but not in memory. I took the boxes to my car. Thanked Melissa and David. Stood on the sidewalk for a moment, looking at the house one last time. Goodbye, I said quietly. To the house. To the version of myself who'd lived there. To all the summers that would never come again. Then I got in my car and drove home. Sunday evening, Paige called. I was in my apartment, unpacking the boxes, sorting through decades of memory. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Mom. Paige. Silence. Heavy and uncertain. I got your letter, she said finally. I figured. Why did you mail it if you knew I'd just post it? Because some things need to be said on paper. Some things need to exist in the real world, not just on a screen. More silence. You really meant all of it? Every word? You're not going to apologize? No. I heard her breath catch, like she'd been expecting a different answer. Like some part of her still thought I'd crack. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said quietly. You don't have to. Not now. Maybe not ever. But I still mean what I said. Which part? All of it. But especially the part about loving you enough to let you fail. She was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing, in the small sounds she was trying to suppress. I'm so embarrassed, Mom. Everyone saw. Everyone knows what happened. Claire won't talk to me. Morgan's parents think I'm a liar. Jessie had to put the motel room on her credit card. And now she's mad because I can't pay her back yet. What are you going to do about it? I don't know. Figure it out. That's it? That's all you're going to say? What do you want me to say? I want you to fix it. Her voice broke on the last word, raw and desperate, and so young. I can't, baby. And I shouldn't. This is yours to fix. I don't know how. Neither did I, but you learn. You apologize to the people you hurt. You pay back the money you owe. You sit with the discomfort until it doesn't hurt quite so much, and then you do better next time. What if there isn't a next time? What if everyone hates me forever? They won't. People forgive. People forget. People move on to the next drama. But you have to give them time. And you have to actually change. Not just wait for them to forget. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I wish you'd just driven down and fixed it. I know. Why didn't you? Because I love you too much to keep teaching you that someone else will always clean up your messes. That doesn't feel like love. I know that too. But someday it will. We sat in silence for a while, neither of us willing to hang up, neither of us sure what else to say. Mom? Yeah, I don't hate you. I know. But I'm still really, really mad. That's okay. You're allowed to be mad. Are you mad at me? I thought about that. About the embarrassment, the public posts, the strangers weighing in on my parenting, about the letter she'd shared with the world, the anger she'd weaponized, the hurt she'd tried to make me feel. No, I said honestly. I'm not mad. I'm just tired and sad, and hoping that someday we'll get through this. Do you think we will? I have to believe we will. Otherwise, what was the point of any of it? We hung up shortly after that. No resolution, no apology from either side. Just two people who loved each other trying to navigate the space between intention and impact, between what we meant and what we did. I went back to the boxes, found more photos, more memories. A letter my father had written to my mother in 1977. a drawing I'd made in 2nd grade. Paige's hospital bracelet from the day she was born. So small it seemed impossible that a person could ever be that tiny. I held that bracelet for a long time, remembering the weight of her in my arms, the way she'd looked up at me with dark, serious eyes, the way I'd promised her I would always keep her safe. I'd kept that promise for 24 years. Maybe it was time to teach her how to keep herself safe instead. Maybe that was the greater promise, the harder one, the one that looked like abandonment but was actually the deepest kind of love. I put the bracelet in a small jewelry box, along with a few other things I wanted to keep close. Then I closed up the boxes, stacked them in my closet, and made myself dinner. Tomorrow I'd go to work. I'd water plants and help customers and do the small, steady things that make up a life. And the day after that, I'd do it again. And eventually, I had to believe this, eventually Paige would understand. Not because I'd explained it perfectly or made it easier or softened the blow, but because pain is a teacher, and the lessons that hurt the most are the ones we remember longest. And sometimes love means being brave enough to let those lessons land. 3 weeks after that phone call with Paige, I got a text from Jessie. I didn't recognize the number at first. Just, "Mrs. Whitmore, this is Jessie Chang. Can we talk?" I was at work, on my lunch break, sitting in my car with a turkey sandwich I'd made that morning. The heat was oppressive even with the windows cracked. The kind of August heat that makes you feel like you're breathing through a wet towel. "Of course," I typed back. "Is everything okay?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Can I call you?" "Yes." The phone rang immediately. "Mrs. Whitmore?" Her voice was tentative, younger sounding than I remembered. Jessie was the quiet one in Paige's group, the one who always seemed to be watching from the edges while the others took center stage. "Hi, Jessie. What's going on?" I wanted to apologize for my part in everything, for not asking more questions before we drove down, for assuming Paige had actually cleared it with you. I set down my sandwich. "You don't need to apologize to me." "I think I do. I posted some things online. Not as bad as Morgan's post, but still. I said some stuff about you that wasn't fair. I didn't know the whole story. Does Paige know you're calling me?" A pause. "No. She'd probably be mad if she knew. But I've been thinking a lot about what happened. And I don't think you were wrong." Something in my chest loosened. "Thank you for saying that." "My mom left when I was 12, Jessie said suddenly. "Just packed up and moved to Oregon with some guy she met online. She sends a card on my birthday sometimes. That's it." She took a shaky breath. "So when everyone was calling you a bad mom, I kept thinking, a bad mom wouldn't have called Paige back. A bad mom wouldn't have explained. A bad mom would have just let her show up and figure it out, you know? I'm sorry about your mother. Don't be. I'm not. I wanted you to know that some of us get it. That what you did was hard, but it wasn't mean. There's a difference." We talked for a few more minutes. She told me she'd paid for the motel room on her credit card, that Paige still hadn't paid her back, that she was starting to realize her friend had a pattern of making promises she couldn't keep. I listened, offered no advice, no judgment. Sometimes people just need to be heard. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a long time, watching people come and go from the grocery store across the parking lot. A young mother with a toddler in the cart, an elderly man moving slowly with a cane, 2 teenagers laughing about something on a phone. All these lives unfolding in parallel, each one carrying its own weight of joy and sorrow and complicated love. I thought about what Jessie had said. There's a difference. Maybe that was all I could hope for. That someday, someone would understand the difference. That night, I was washing dishes when my phone rang. Paige. We'd texted sporadically over the past few weeks. Short exchanges, surface-level updates. "How's work?" "Fine." "How's Grandma?" "The same." Nothing real. Nothing that touched the wound still healing between us. "Hi," I said, drying my hands on a towel. "Jessie called you." Not a question, an accusation. "She did. What did she say?" "That's between me and her. She's my friend. And she's her own person. She can call whoever she wants." Paige was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was tight. "Everyone's turning on me. Morgan barely talks to me anymore. Claire straight up told me I was a bad friend. And now Jessie's calling my mom behind my back. Maybe they're not turning on you. Maybe they're just being honest." "About what?" "About how they feel. About what happened." "So you think I'm a bad friend too?" I sat down on my couch, suddenly exhausted. "I think you made a promise you couldn't keep. I think you didn't ask the right questions before you made that promise. I think you're learning what it feels like when people trust you, and you let them down. God, you sound so righteous right now." "I'm not trying to be righteous. I'm trying to be honest." "Well, your honesty feels a lot like judgment. Maybe that's because you're judging yourself and projecting it onto me." Silence, heavy and sharp. "I can't do this," she said finally. "I can't talk to you when you're like this." "Like what?" "Like you have all the answers. Like you're the wise mother figure who knows everything and I'm just the stupid kid who screws everything up." "I've never said you were stupid. You don't have to say it. It's in your voice. It's in every word you're not saying." "Paige, I have to go." She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, feeling the familiar ache of loving someone who can't hear you, who takes every truth as an attack, every boundary as betrayal. I thought about calling her back, apologizing for something I wasn't sure I'd done wrong, making it easier, smoother, less painful. Instead, I set the phone down, finished the dishes, made myself a cup of tea, sat on my balcony and watched the sunset over the Durham skyline, the sky streaked with orange and pink and deepening blue. Sunday, I visited my mother. She was lucid, more lucid than she'd been in weeks. She knew my name, knew the year, asked about Paige with genuine curiosity. "How is she?" Mom asked, settled in her chair by the window. "She's struggling." "With what?" "With me. With growing up. With the fact that the world doesn't always give you what you want, just because you want it." Mom smiled, sad and knowing. "You were the same way at her age." "Was I?" "Oh yes. Stubborn. Certain you knew better than everyone else. I remember when you wanted to drop out of college after your first semester. Said it was a waste of time, that you could learn more just living life." "I'd forgotten about that." "What did you say?" "I said you were probably right. That college wasn't for everyone. And then I stopped paying for your apartment." She laughed softly. "You were so angry. Didn't talk to me for 2 months. But you stayed in school. Graduated, got a good job. I don't remember being that angry. Because you got over it. That's what we do. We get angry, we get over it. We move on. But while you're in it, it feels like the end of the world. Does it get easier? Being the mother everyone's mad at?" Mom reached out, took my hand. Her skin was papery, cool. "No, but it gets clearer. You stop needing everyone to understand. You start trusting yourself more than you trust their opinions." We sat together in comfortable silence for a while. Outside the window, I could see the facility's garden, roses and daylilies and a small fountain where birds came to drink. Everything green and growing, tended by people who cared. "I'm proud of you," Mom said suddenly. "For what?" "For being strong enough to let her struggle. I wasn't always good at that with you and Carol. I wanted to make everything easy, but easy doesn't teach you anything. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm failing. Strength rarely feels like strength when you're in it. It just feels like getting through another day." I thought about that all the way home. Monday morning, I was restocking the rose section when Dennis approached with his usual quiet presence. "Got something to show you," he said, gesturing toward the back office. I followed him, curious. In the office, he pulled up a video on his ancient desktop computer. "My daughter sent me this. Thought you should see it." It was a TikTok video. A young woman, maybe early 20s, talking directly to the camera. So everyone's been sharing that beach house story, right? About the mom who betrayed her daughter? And I just want to say something about that. She paused, looked down, then back up. My mom did something similar to me 2 years ago. I was living at home, not paying rent, barely working, and she told me I had 6 months to get my own place, or I'd have to leave. I was so mad. I posted about it, called her toxic. My friends all agreed she was being unreasonable. Another pause. I moved out, got a job I hated, struggled, cried a lot. And you know what? It was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I learned I could actually take care of myself. I learned that I was capable of more than I thought. And I learned that my mom wasn't being mean. She was giving me a gift. The gift of believing I could do hard things. She looked directly at the camera. So to that mom with the beach house, I don't know if your daughter will ever thank you. Mine still hasn't. But what you did was brave and necessary, and probably the most loving thing you could have done, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. The video ended. I realized I was crying. "That help?" Dennis asked gruffly. "Yes," I whispered. "Thank you." He nodded, turned off the computer. People are quick to judge, slow to understand. But the ones who've been through it, they get it. Remember that. That week, something shifted. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but slowly, like weather changing. The online posts about me started to die down. New scandals emerged, new villains for people to dissect. I faded into the background of the internet's collective memory. Paige still wasn't speaking to me, but Jessie texted occasionally. Small updates, nothing heavy. Morgan's mother stopped calling. Claire, I heard through Jessie, had found a new friend group and was doing better. I fell into a routine. Work, visit mom, read on my balcony in the evenings. Simple, quiet days that felt like exhaling after holding your breath too long. On Thursday, I got an email from the lawyer who'd handled the house sale. Subject line, funds from sale. I opened it with my heart pounding. There was a breakdown of the sale, closing costs, agent fees, the payoff of the mortgage and equity line, and at the bottom, a number, $47,000. $47,000. More than I'd expected. More than I'd let myself hope for. The email continued. These funds have been deposited into your account. Please let me know if you have any questions. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my laptop screen. $47,000. Not enough to retire on, not enough to stop working, but enough to breathe. Enough to not panic about mom's next bill. Enough to, maybe, eventually start saving again. I thought about Paige. About the hotel room I hadn't paid for. About the money she'd asked for that I'd refused to give. I opened my banking app, looked at the balance, then I closed it. She hadn't earned it. And giving it to her now would teach her nothing except that eventually, if you wait long enough, someone will rescue you. Instead, I transferred $5,000 into a savings account I labeled Paige's Future, for a real emergency, for something that mattered. Not for a vacation she'd mismanaged, but for something she might actually need someday. Then I closed my laptop and made myself dinner. Friday evening. Carol called. Paige reached out to me, she said. Asked if I thought she should apologize to you. What did you tell her? I asked her what she thought she needed to apologize for. And? She said, I don't know. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. Carol paused. I think she's starting to understand. Starting to isn't the same as actually understanding. No, but it's a beginning. We talked about other things. Her boys, her upcoming school year, a trip she was planning to the mountains. Normal, ordinary things that felt like medicine after weeks of drama. You sound better, Carol said before we hung up. I feel better. Or at least, I feel clearer. Good. Clarity is better than happiness sometimes. Is it? I think so. Happiness comes and goes, but clarity, that stays with you. That helps you make better choices next time. After we hung up, I thought about choices, about all the ones I'd made in the past month. The ones that had felt impossible at the time, but inevitable in retrospect. The choice to sell the house. The choice to say no. The choice to let Paige struggle instead of rescuing her. Were they the right choices? I still didn't know. Maybe I'd never know. But they were my choices. Made with love, even when they didn't look like it. Made with hope, even when they felt like loss. That had to count for something. Saturday afternoon, I was reading on my balcony when my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Whitmore? This is David Hargrove, Melissa's husband, from the beach house. Hi, David. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. Great, actually. Melissa had the baby yesterday. A girl, Eleanor. Congratulations, I said and meant it. That's wonderful. We wanted to let you know. And we wanted to tell you something else. We've been thinking about the house's history, about your family, about everything it meant to you. And we wondered if you'd like to come visit sometime. Not to stay. We understand that would be weird. But just to see it. To see Eleanor. To know that the house is full of life again. My throat tightened. That's very kind. We know it's not the same as it being yours. But we thought maybe it would help to know it's loved. Thank you, I whispered. I'd like that. We talked for a few more minutes about the baby, about the house, about Tothing in particular. When we hung up, I sat very still, feeling something unfold in my chest. Not closure. I wasn't sure I believed in that. But maybe acceptance. Maybe the beginning of peace. The house was gone. But it was still there, still standing, still full of life and hope and new beginnings. Maybe that was enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up at 2 a.m., made chamomile tea, sat in my living room in the dark. The city hummed outside my window. Distant traffic, the occasional siren, the soft sounds of other people living their lives. I thought about Paige, about the daughter she'd been and the woman she was becoming, about the space between those two versions of her, the painful growing that happened in that space. I thought about my mother, forgetting and remembering in waves, still asking about the beach, still living in a past that felt more real to her than the present. I thought about myself at 24, angry at my mother for not paying my rent, certain I knew better, certain she was wrong. And I thought about the woman I was now, 51, alone, doing the best she could with what she had. Not perfect, not wise, not certain of anything except that love sometimes looks like letting go, and strength sometimes feels like weakness, and the hardest thing you can do for someone is believe they're capable of more than they think they are. My phone buzzed. A text. From Paige. I've been thinking. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. I'm still mad, but I think I understand why you did it. Or I'm starting to. That's good. I typed back. Take your time. There's no rush. I paid Jesse back today. Finally saved up enough. I'm proud of you. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I'm not ready to talk yet, but maybe soon. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. I know. The dots disappeared. The conversation ended. But something had shifted. Something small but significant. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. The acknowledgement that there was something to forgive. Something to work through. That we were both still here. Still trying. Still finding our way toward each other across the distance I'd created by refusing to carry her. I finished my tea. Went back to bed. Lay in the dark, listening to the city breathe. And for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. The next morning, Sunday, I drove to Golden Shores. Mom was having a good day again. 2 in 1 week, which felt like a gift. "Tell me about the beach house," she said after we'd settled into our usual spots. "What do you want to know? Is it still there?" "Yes, it's still there. A nice couple lives there now. They just had a baby. That's good. Houses should have babies in them. Children and noise and life. They invited me to visit. Are you going to?" "I don't know. Maybe." Mom looked at me for a long moment, her eyes clear and sharp. "It's okay to let things go, Lauren. It's okay to move forward. The past doesn't disappear just because you're not living in it anymore." "When did you get so wise?" She smiled. "I've always been wise. You're just finally old enough to listen." We sat together, watching the birds at the fountain, the sun moving across the garden. Everything, green and growing. Everything finding its way toward the light. "I'm going to be okay," I said quietly. Not to her, really. To myself. To the universe. To whatever was listening. "I know you are," Mom said. "You always have been." Monday morning back at work, Dennis found me in the greenhouse. "You look different," he said. "How?" "Lighter. Like you set something down." "Maybe I did." He nodded, satisfied. "Good. You were carrying too much. Most mothers do. Doesn't mean you have to." I went back to watering the ferns, to the simple rhythm of care. And I thought about what he'd said. You were carrying too much. Maybe that was the whole problem. Maybe I'd been so focused on carrying everything. For Paige, for my mother, for everyone who needed something from me, that I'd forgotten how to let other people carry their own weight. Maybe strength wasn't about how much you could carry. Maybe it was about knowing when to set something down. That night, I wrote in my journal, something I'd started doing a few weeks ago, when the insomnia got bad. Nothing profound, just thoughts, observations, attempts to make sense of what I was feeling. Today I realized that I've spent most of my life apologizing for taking up space, for having needs, for not being enough. But what if I am enough? What if I've always been enough and I just never let myself believe it? Paige is angry. She might be angry for a long time. But I can't make myself small anymore to make her comfortable. I can't keep apologizing for decisions I made with love, even if they hurt. The house is gone. My daughter is distant. My mother is fading. But I'm still here. Still standing. Still moving forward. That has to count for something. I closed the journal, turned off the light, lay in the dark, feeling something settle in my bones. Not peace, not yet, but something close to it. Something that felt like the beginning of coming home to myself. And maybe that was enough. For now, maybe that was more than enough. September came quietly, the way it always does in North Carolina. The heat loosening its grip degree by degree. The light shifting from harsh white to honeyed gold. The garden center started stocking mums and ornamental kale, pumpkins appearing in cheerful orange clusters by the entrance. I'd always loved fall, the sense of things winding down, preparing for rest. I was restocking the fall display when my phone rang. Paige. We'd texted sporadically over the past few weeks, brief exchanges, careful and surface level. Like two people learning to walk on ice. But she hadn't called since that night in August when she'd told me she was starting to understand. "Hi," I said, stepping away from the display, moving toward the quieter corner near the garden tools. "Hi." Her voice was different, smaller. "Can you talk?" "Of course. I've been seeing a therapist." She said it quickly, like she needed to get it out before she lost courage. "For about 3 weeks now." "That's good, Paige. That's really good. She thinks I have some codependency issues. And that I've been using you as like a security blanket, that I never really learned to deal with disappointment because you always fixed things before I had to feel them." I closed my eyes, leaning against a shelf. "What do you think?" "I think she might be right." A pause. "I think a lot of people might have been right and I just didn't want to hear it. It's hard to hear difficult things about ourselves. Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen, okay? Don't say anything until I'm done." "Okay," She took a breath and I could hear the tremor in it. I've been really angry at you. Like, so angry that sometimes I couldn't think about anything else. And I told myself you were the problem. That you'd betrayed me. That you deliberately humiliated me. That you were this terrible person who didn't care about my feelings. I stayed quiet, let her continue. But the truth is, I knew. When you told me in March that you were selling the house, I heard you. When you told me again in April, I heard you. And in May at lunch, I definitely heard you. I just didn't want it to be true. So I convinced myself you were bluffing, that you'd change your mind, that if I just ignored it, it would go away. Her voice broke. And then, when we showed up and the house was sold, I was so embarrassed. Not even about the house, really, but about the fact that everyone could see I'd been lying, that I'd made promises I had no right to make, that I'd been so sure you'd cave, that I didn't even consider the possibility you wouldn't. Paige, please, let me finish. She took another shaky breath. I blamed you because it was easier than admitting I'd screwed up. I let my friends blame you. I let their parents call you. I posted things online that made you look horrible. Because if everyone agreed you were the villain, then I didn't have to be. She was crying now. Really crying. And the worst part is, I knew what I was doing. I knew I was hurting you. I knew those posts would spread, that people would judge you. And I did it anyway because I was so desperate for people to be on my side that I didn't care what it cost you. Honey, I'm sorry. The words came out strangled, desperate. I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve any of that. You were just trying to survive, and I made it so much harder. I made you the bad guy when you were the one making impossible choices, so Grandma could have care. And I could have. I don't even know what. A fantasy? A life where nothing was ever my fault? I was crying too now, silently. Tears running down my face while I stood in the corner of Meadowbrook Garden Center at 2:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. I forgive you, I said quietly. Just like that. Just like that. How? After everything I did. Everything I said. Because you're my daughter. Because I love you. Because you just did one of the hardest things a person can do. You looked at yourself honestly and took responsibility. That takes more courage than most people ever manage. I don't feel courageous. I feel like shit. That's how courage usually feels. She laughed, a wet, broken sound. My therapist says I need to make amends. Not just say sorry, but actually make things right. So I deleted all the posts. And I wrote an apology on Instagram, explaining what really happened. How you'd told me multiple times and I chose not to listen. How I'd made you the villain when you were just doing what you had to do. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. People were horrible to you, Mom. They said awful things, and it was my fault. I needed to fix it. How did people respond? Some people were supportive. Some people were mad that I'd lied before. Some people said I was just trying to save face. She paused. Honestly, I don't care what they think anymore. I needed to say it for me. And for you. We were both quiet for a moment, just breathing together across the distance. Can I ask you something? Paige said finally. Anything. Why didn't you defend yourself? When everyone was posting about you, calling you names, saying you were a terrible mother, why didn't you say anything? I thought about that. About all the times I'd wanted to type out a response, to explain, to justify. About all the times I'd stop myself. Because defending yourself to people who have already decided you're guilty is exhausting. And because the people who mattered, the people who actually knew me, they knew the truth. The rest was just noise. That must have been so hard. It was, but it was also freeing. I couldn't control what people thought. I could only control what I knew to be true. What did you know to be true? That I love you. That I made the best decision I could with the information and resources I had. That I was trying to teach you something important. even if it hurt us both, that sometimes being a good mother means being a disappointing one. Paige was quiet for a long time. Then, "I want to see you. Can I come visit next weekend?" My heart jumped. "Yes, please, yes." "I'm nervous." "Me too." "What if it's weird?" "It probably will be weird. That's okay. We'll figure it out." "Okay." She sounded young again, uncertain. "Okay. I'll text you when I know what time I'll get there." "I love you, Paige. I love you too, Mom." After we hung up, I stood in that corner for a long time, holding my phone, letting the tears dry on my face. Dennis walked past, saw me, and just nodded. Didn't ask questions. Didn't need to. Some things are too sacred for words. That night, I called Carol. "Paige apologized," I said as soon as she answered. "About time. She deleted all the posts, wrote a public apology explaining what really happened." "How do you feel?" "Relieved, scared, hopeful, all of it at once." "That sounds about right." I could hear the smile in Carol's voice. "You did good, Lauren. You held the line, and she came around. I didn't know if she would, but you held the line anyway. That's what matters." We talked for over an hour, about Paige, about my mother, about Carol's boys, and the start of the school year. Normal, ordinary things that felt extraordinary after months of crisis. "You sound different," Carol said before we hung up. "How?" "Lighter. Like you've been holding your breath and finally remembered how to exhale." "Maybe I have." "Good. You deserve to breathe." Saturday morning, I cleaned my apartment. Really cleaned it. The deep kind of cleaning you do when someone you love is coming home. I changed the sheets in the guest room, bought fresh flowers for the kitchen table, stocked the fridge with Paige's favorite foods, string cheese, those expensive crackers she liked, the fancy hummus from Whole Foods. I could never justify buying for just myself. She was supposed to arrive around 2. At 1:30, I started checking my phone obsessively. At 1:45, I stood on my balcony, watching the parking lot like a sentry. Her car pulled in at 2:03, the same Honda Civic I'd co-signed for 3 years ago, still sporting a dent in the back bumper from when she'd backed into a pole at the mall. She parked, sat in the car for a moment. I could see her through the windshield, hands on the steering wheel, taking deep breaths. I understood. I was doing the same thing inside my apartment. Finally, she got out, grabbed a backpack from the passenger seat, looked up at my building, shading her eyes against the sun. I waved from the balcony. She waved back. I went downstairs to meet her at the door. The first few minutes were awkward, the way reunions often are. Too much to say and no idea where to start. We hugged at the door, tentative at first, then harder, longer. She smelled like the lavender detergent she'd always used, like coffee, and something sweet I couldn't identify. "You look good," she said, pulling back to study me. "So do you?" She did. Thinner, maybe. Shadows under her eyes. But something in her face had changed, hardened and softened simultaneously. She looked older, more real. We went upstairs. I made tea, chamomile for me, peppermint for her. We sat at my small kitchen table, the same table where I'd eaten so many solitary meals over the past few months, and for a moment, neither of us knew what to say. "This is weird," Paige said finally. "So weird. Good weird or bad weird? I don't know yet." She laughed, a real laugh, and something in my chest unclenched. "How's therapy?" I asked. "Hard. Really hard. I cry a lot. My therapist says that's normal, that I'm processing stuff I should have processed years ago. But it doesn't make it easier." "What kind of stuff?" She looked down at her tea. "Dad, mostly. How I never really dealt with him leaving. How I made you into both parents, and then resented you for not being perfect at it. How I've been mad at you for things that weren't your fault." My throat tightened. Tom had left when Paige was 7. Just packed up and moved to Seattle with a woman from his office. We'd gotten divorced fast, clean, businesslike. He sent child support for a few years, then gradually faded out. Birthday cards became birthday texts, became nothing at all. You have a right to be angry about your father. I know, but I was angry at the wrong person. I was angry at you for the things he didn't do, for not being there, not caring enough, not choosing us. But that was him, not you. You stayed. You've always stayed. I'm your mother. Staying isn't optional. It is, though. Some mothers leave. Some mothers give up. You never did, even when I made it really, really hard. She looked up at me, eyes shining, especially when I made it really hard. You're not hard to love, Paige. I kind of am, though. I'm selfish. I'm entitled. I make everything about me. My therapist has a whole list. Does she also have a list of your good qualities? I asked her that. She said I'm loyal, creative, and passionate. But then she said those same qualities can become problems if they're not balanced with self-awareness and accountability. Sounds like a good therapist. She is. She reminds me of you, actually. She doesn't let me get away with bullshit. We talked for hours. She told me about therapy, about the work she was doing to understand her patterns, to break the cycles she'd been living in. I told her about the past few months, about the loneliness and the clarity, about the strangers who judged me, and the few who'd understood. Jessie told me she called you, Paige said. I was mad at first, but then I realized she was braver than I was. She did what I should have done weeks earlier. She's a good friend. She is. Morgan and Claire aren't talking to me anymore. They think I lied to them, that I manipulated them. They're not wrong, exactly. I did lie. I convinced myself I was telling the truth, but I was lying. Do you miss them? Sometimes. But mostly I'm realizing they weren't really my friends. They liked me when everything was easy, when I was fun and spontaneous and always up for whatever. But when things got hard, when I screwed up, they bailed. Jessie didn't. That tells me something. It tells you a lot. That evening, we made dinner together. Pasta with vegetables. Simple and comforting. We fell into an easy rhythm, the muscle memory of years cooking together. She chopped garlic while I boiled water. I grated cheese while she stirred sauce. Small, ordinary tasks that felt like stitching something back together, one motion at a time. Over dinner, she asked about my mother. How's Grandma? Some days good, some days bad. She asks about the beach house a lot. I keep telling her we'll go soon. Does she understand it's gone? In her lucid moments, yes. In her foggy ones, no. I think she lives in a place where the house still exists, where your grandfather is still alive, where everything is the way it was 40 years ago. That sounds nice, actually. Living in the good memories. It is and it isn't. There's comfort in it, but also loss. She's missing the present because she's stuck in the past. Paige was quiet for a moment. Is that what I was doing? Living in a version of reality that didn't exist anymore? Maybe. But you're here now. Present. That's what matters. After dinner, we sat on my balcony with glasses of wine, watching the sun set over Durham. The sky was magnificent. Layers of orange and pink and purple. The kind of sunset that makes you believe in something bigger than yourself. I got the money from the house sale, I said. After everything was paid off, there was about $47,000 left. Paige turned to look at me. That's good, right? It is. It means I can breathe for a while. Maybe build up some savings. Not panic every time a bill comes. I'm glad. She paused. I'm sorry I asked you for money that day. For the hotel? That was shitty. You were desperate and embarrassed. People don't make their best decisions in those moments. Still, it wasn't fair to you. We sat in silence for a while, just being together. It felt fragile still, like something healing but not healed. But it also felt possible, like maybe we could find our way back to each other. Not as we'd been, but as we were becoming. Mom, Paige said quietly. Yeah, thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. even when I gave up on you. I reached over, took her hand. I could never give up on you, even when you hate me, even when everyone else thinks I should. You're my daughter. That's forever. She squeezed my hand, and we sat there together as the light faded, as the stars began to appear, as the world turned toward night. Sunday morning, we drove to Golden Shores together. Paige had asked if she could come, said she wanted to see her grandmother, wanted to say sorry for not visiting in so long. Mom was having a medium day. She knew who I was, recognized Paige after a moment. But the details were fuzzy. Still, her face lit up when she saw us together. "My girls," she said, smiling. "Both my girls." We sat with her for over an hour. Paige told her about therapy, about her new job at a coffee shop in Raleigh, about a painting class she'd started taking. Mom listened, nodded, occasionally asked questions that didn't quite track. But she was happy. You could see it in her face, in the way she kept reaching out to touch us, to make sure we were real. "When are we going to the beach?" Mom asked eventually. Paige and I looked at each other. Then Paige said, "The house is gone now, Grandma. But it was beautiful while we had it, wasn't it?" "The most beautiful place in the world," Mom said softly. "I can still hear the ocean." "Can you?" "Yes," Paige said, "though we were 40 miles from any ocean." "I can hear it too." Mom smiled, satisfied, and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. We sat with her for a little while longer, just watching her breathe, watching the sun move across the floor. "She's peaceful," Paige whispered. "She is. Not always, but today, yes." "Do you think she's happy, with her memories being all jumbled?" "I think she's as happy as she can be. And I think knowing we're here, that we visit, that we love her, I think that still reaches her, even when nothing else does." We left when the lunch cart started coming around, kissed Mom goodbye, promised to visit soon. In the car, Paige was quiet for a long time. Then, "I don't want to wait until I'm forgetting everything to tell you that I love you." "You don't have to wait. I love you, Mom. Even when I'm mad, even when we're fighting, even when I'm being a complete asshole. I love you. I love you too, baby. Always." That afternoon, Paige packed up to drive back to Raleigh. We stood in the parking lot, delaying the goodbye, neither of us ready to let go of the weekend. "Will you come visit me sometime?" she asked. "I want to show you my apartment. It's tiny and kind of crappy, but it's mine. I'm paying for it myself. I'm proud of you for having a crappy apartment, for standing on your own 2 feet." She smiled, then hugged me tight. "I'm going to keep going to therapy, keep working on myself. It's going to take a while. That's okay. I'm not going anywhere. Even if I mess up again, even then. But Paige, yeah, you're going to mess up again. Everyone does. The difference is whether you take responsibility for it or blame everyone else. No pressure. Lots of pressure. But I believe you can handle it." She pulled back, studying my face. "Do you really?" "Yes. I've always believed in you. I just needed you to start believing in yourself." She got in her car, rolled down the window. "Hey, Mom. Yeah, you were right. About the house, about not giving me money, about all of it. You were right, and I was wrong. I just needed time to see it. Time has a way of clarifying things." "Yeah." She started the engine. "I'll call you tomorrow. I'll be here." I watched her drive away, standing in that parking lot long after her car had disappeared. The air was cooler now, autumn settling in for real. Soon the leaves would turn. Soon the world would prepare for winter, for rest, for the quiet season. But right now, in this moment, everything felt possible. Not perfect, not easy, but possible. And maybe that was enough. That night I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and my journal. I wrote, "Today Paige left, and I didn't cry. Not because that I wasn't sad, but because I wasn't afraid anymore. I'm not afraid she'll never speak to me again. I'm not afraid that I damaged her beyond repair. I'm not afraid I'm a bad mother. I know now that I did the best I could, that I made hard choices with love, that I let her struggle because I believed she was strong enough to survive it. And she did survive it. She's still surviving it, and so am I. The house is gone. My daughter and I are still finding our way back to each other. My mother is fading. These are facts. These are losses. But I'm still here, still standing, still learning, still believing that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is trust that the people you love are capable of more than they think they are. I sold a house to save my mother's dignity. I refused to rescue my daughter to teach her she could rescue herself. I stood in the judgment of strangers and the anger of the person I love most, and I survived. Not unscathed, not unchanged, but I survived. And maybe that's all we can ever really do. Survive the impossible choices. Trust that love is strong enough to weather honesty. Believe that the hard road leads somewhere worth going. The house that wasn't mine anymore taught me that some things have to be let go so other things can grow. And I'm growing, slowly, painfully, imperfectly. But I'm growing. And that's enough. I closed the journal, finished my tea, turned off the lights and went to bed. Outside, the city hummed its evening song. Somewhere out there, Paige was driving home, windows down, radio playing. Somewhere out there, my mother was sleeping, dreaming of ocean waves. Somewhere out there, David and Melissa were rocking baby Eleanor to sleep in a house that used to be mine. And here I was, in a small apartment in Durham, North Carolina, 51 years old, alone, but not lonely, uncertain but not afraid. I closed my eyes and let sleep come. Tomorrow I would wake up. I would go to work. I would water plants and help customers and do the small, steady things that make up a life. And the day after that, I would do it again. And eventually, I believe this now, eventually the distance between who I'd been and who I was becoming would feel less like loss and more like liberation. Eventually, I would look back on this summer and understand that the house I lost was never really mine to keep, that the only home that mattered was the one I was learning to build inside myself, a home made of boundaries and honesty and love that didn't always look like comfort, a home made of letting go so the people I loved could learn to hold on, a home made of saying no when every instinct screamed yes, a home made of faith, not in perfection, not in easy answers, but in the possibility of redemption, in the grace that lives in the space between mistake and forgiveness, in the strength it takes to watch someone you love fall and believe they'll learn to fly. And as I drifted off to sleep, I thought about what my mother had said. It's okay to let things go. The past doesn't disappear just because you're not living in it anymore. She was right. The beach house would always be there in my memory, sun-warmed and salt-scented, full of laughter and summers that stretched on forever. But I didn't need to live there anymore. I just needed to remember that it existed, that once upon a time I was a little girl learning to tie her shoes in a kitchen that smelled like coffee, that once upon a time I was a young mother teaching my daughter to swim in the Atlantic, that once upon a time everything I loved lived under one roof, and now everything I loved was scattered in assisted living facilities and Raleigh apartments and houses that belong to other people. But love doesn't need proximity to exist. It just needs to be true. And this, all of this, was true. The loss, the struggle, the letting go, the hope that tomorrow would be different, the faith that we were both strong enough to survive what we couldn't control, the belief that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to save themselves. I fell asleep thinking about beach houses and boundaries and the complicated mathematics of love. And for the first time in months, I didn't dream of drowning. I dreamed of flying. I got us a beach house for the summer, my daughter told her friends without telling me. But when they arrived, the door was locked, and there were new owners already inside.